Now, there are a lot of tools you need to and products you need to use to work on your car to do an oil change, but most important, you need a jack and jack stands. Jacks alone are not the greatest, not the safest. They tend to sometimes collapse on themselves, and you will end up laying in the car with the consequences of your choices. So make sure that you have a jack and jack stands. We're going to lift the car from the front on the factory lifting point. And we're going to need something to catch the used motor oil. And that is a motor oil catch can, like this one. You can get it on your local auto shop. The tools you're going to need for doing an oil change is, first of all, some eye protection. Then you're going to need at least a 13mm wrench, or recommended best a 13mm pipe on a ratchet, as you're going to have to tighten the oil plug to a set amount of torque with using a torque meter. And sometimes the oil filter might be stuck due to having been on the car for at least 10,000 kilometers or 8,000 miles. So a oil filter wrench might be useful. To do an oil change on your SAAB 9.3, you're going to need 4 liters of 5W30 engine oil. Recommend using Castrol. You're going to need a new oil filter and at least a new gasket for your oil plug. You can also buy a complete set with the oil filter and oil, a plug, and new gaskets. Sometimes it's just recommended to use a new plug, as the old plug may have damaged threads or just been worn for multiple uses. Do bear in mind, sometimes producers tend to give 2 different kinds of washers with the oil plug. Do not use both of them, only select one. When it comes to lifting your SAAB on the front, there's only one area to lift it that will simultaneously lift both parts of the front area, and that is a service factory front lifting point.
Right there, where my finger on is the factory lifting point. We're going to place the jack underneath there and lift from there. That is the only safest way to do it. If you try to lift any other places, it will just break or damage your subframe or the car.
It's also really important to remember to always pull up your handbrake, or at least place something to block your rear wheels, as when lifting the car you need to make sure that the car won't roll backwards. And then we just start jacking up the car. With the car lifted just enough, we have then placed jack stands on the correct lifting points. And you can now carefully, slowly put the car down on the jack stands.
Now we can see our workspace. This is the engine oil filter, and behind there, just on the knob right there, is your engine oil plug to the oil pan. As you can tell, my engine is really oily because I did one wrong thing during my previous oil change, which was using 2 washers on my engine oil plug, and that's why there's a lot of oil on the pan and on the exhaust. To start off our procedure, we're going to place our oil catch can just around the oil plug that is located right there. To make the oil flow faster out of the drain, we're going to simply just open the oil catch. That way air will flow continuously down, and we'll use a little bit less time waiting for the oil to drip out. As you can see right there, that's the oil plug. And this is where we're now going to take whatever tool you had, which was either a 13mm wrench or a ratchet with a 30mm pipe. And we're going to untighten the drain plug and let the oil fall down into the catch can. And like so, the oil is now entering the catch can, and we can let the draining begin. Now let's work on the engine oil filter. And you know what, you're probably gonna make a mess at the start. As you can see, my engine oil started to flow over because I didn't place the oil catch can right. So when you're taking off the oil plug, just be observant of the oil flowing out to prevent as little oil to fall out as possible. Since I made a mess right here, I'm going to have to use some other kind of container to make sure that the oil from the air filter just don't fall on the asphalt on the ground. And I'm just going to use a thick shopping bag, as it is a bit more maneuverable to get placed underneath. This one has been on the car for at least 10,000 kilometers, or around 8,000 miles, and it probably is a bit stuck. So we're going to use the oil wrench that is self-locking. Some kind of oil filters have just a rubber rope that you lock into the handle. Some are using a chain, and this is just a self-closing one. I'm gonna place it around the filter and just gonna carefully attach pressure onto it. As you can tell, the gasket has done its job, and it's tight on, but it's slowly getting looser and looser. See soon some oil drip out from the lip. Now the filter is loose enough for me to be able to do it the rest of the way by hand. There you can see there's a lot more oil in it than it seems like. So with that completed, we're going to let the oil spill out into our catch cans or bags or whatever sort of catch can you're using. And as you can see, that right there is the threads for the oil filter. Now that the oil from the oil sump and oil filter is soon all empty, we can take a look at our old and new parts. This is our old oil filter, and as you can see, it is at least time to change the oil. It is still an okay shade, I can still see through it. And looking at the plug, there's no metallic shavings or anything, but this is my example of what I did wrong last time. This is our new oil plug, and with it came two kinds of gaskets, a nylon washer or a metal washer with a rubber gasket on the side. I used both, which meant that none of the washers were able to crush enough to the oil sump and make a perfect seal. Therefore, I ended up having an oil leak since January of 24. This is our new engine oil filter. I myself noticed that at a different height, but I'm gonna trust the process, as if something goes wrong, I can just contact my local oil shop where I bought it from. When it comes to the oil filter, there's a lot of different ways people install them. Some install them as is from purchase, with just some oil on the gasket and install dry, while others recommend using some of the new oil and pre-fill the oil filter, making sure that the paper in the oil filter is just saturated and won't have a dry spot in the system during the first startup. I like to follow that rule, so I'm just going to show how to pre-fill your oil filter. So, to pre-fill your engine oil filter, you're going to need your can of new motor oil, and preferably both hands. You're going to steadily fill the middle part a little bit, and what people recommend is just spinning around to let the oil reach every nook and cranny of the oil filter. Gonna let it rest for a little bit to let the oil completely suck into the filter. We can now take a look at the oil filter housing, and these are the threads for it. And it's really important to take a look on the surface here, as if there are any remnants of the gasket from the old oil filter and we reattach a new one, we end up having two gaskets on and they won't seal. So really important to just make sure that it's a clean area. It's okay to have some oil on there, it will only help threading on the new filter. When it comes to the new oil filter, there's a rubber gasket on it, and if we do not lubricate it before installation, it will be a pain in the ass to take off again next time you're doing oil service. Your used oil filter, just take some of the used motor oil and lubricate the gasket on the new filter. As you can see, I am spilling a little bit, but that's okay. Now, before I'm gonna tighten it all the way, I'm just gonna clean out the surroundings. And we're going to just use our strength to snugly fit the engine filter on. Like such. Now, more or less all the oil is out, as just a simple drip is falling out by the second. I'm now taking the new plug with the metal washer on. You might choose a nylon or copper or wherever you prefer, but metal, aluminium or copper is usually better for due to heat transparency and other properties like that. I'm going to first thread it with my fingers. Now that I'm feeling resistance, I will now actually just clean around and torque it to this set Newton meter. It is recommended to use some brake clean, but some shop towels or paper works just fine.
According to the Bible of all Saabs, the Haynes SAABNATIC manual for the first generation SAAB it is in the torque wrench settings written that the engine oil sump drain plug has 25 Newton meter torque or just 18 foot-pound-feet.
The tool is set to 25 Newton meters. We can now finally torque down the bolt. Well, this is a problem. There we go, 25 Newton meters. That's all we need. Not have a torque Newton meter tool or a way to perfectly tighten the plug. You can always just use the snug meter, as I call it, by just simply taking a pipe or wrench and tighten it snug and not much else, just a little bit force, because these threads are really sensitive. If you damage those, you're gonna have to re-thread the oil sump.
The handy part about these oil catch cans is that they often come with plugs to seal the used motor oil in its container. That way it's much more easy to carry around the can without spilling. Now we have worked underneath. Before we can start working with filling up the engine, we're gonna have to place it back on the ground by jacking up the car again, removing the jack stands, and make sure that the car is level, as to be able to correctly monitor the amount of oil in the car. And now the fun begins. We're now going to remove the engine oil cap all the way and just add 4 liters of Castrol Edge 5W30 engine oil. When filling up the car with new engine oil, I don't always fill it all the way up. There's always going to be some oil in the car, so I fill around 3 liters of the 4-liter container. I start up the car, let it run for a couple of minutes max, and then turn it off, just to make sure the oil is getting through the system, getting pumped up. And then I just take a look at the dipstick and monitor how much it is. And depending on where the mark on the dipstick is filled, we either fill more or we'll let it be. We're simply going to monitor the level, and as you can see, there's nothing on it. It's supposed to be on the square part of the dipstick, and there's barely something here, so clearly it needs the last liter. Alright, now with the oil completely filled up, you can see that it is really shiny, and it is actually now up to the upper part. The Haynes manual, which is a good reference to have, tells that the oil is supposed to be in between point A, which is around the bubble part, and point A, which is the upper part, and that 1 liter changes from the bottom to the upper, so from either the middle or just a bit up over that. So, but this is good. That's all. Now we've successfully changed the engine oil filter, the drain plug, and the gasket on the drain plug, as well as filled with new engine oil. That's all, folks. Thanks very much for watching. Hope you guys have a great day on, and keep on subbing, and also subscribe. Sooner or later we'll go back to the project car of mine.
responsible. Recycle the engine oil. Check your local guidelines on how to dispose of the oil. Either you can return it to the auto shop or to your local junkyard.